Captain Lisa Harmon stood on the bridge of the UES Defiant, her eyes fixed on the massive view screen that showed the endless expanse of stars. After 5 years of deep space travel, humanity's first interstellar vessel had finally reached its destination, the edge of the Proxima Centauri system. She brushed a strand of auburn hair from her face and took a deep breath. This moment would go down in human history. "All systems nominal, Captain," reported Communications Officer Frank Miller, his fingers dancing across the holographic interface. "We're ready to broadcast the greeting message on all frequencies." Lisa nodded. "Proceed, Officer Miller." The message was simple, a peaceful greeting in over 200 Earth languages, accompanied by mathematical sequences that demonstrated human intelligence. The crew of 85 held their breath as the signal went out into the darkness. Dr. Alan Wright, the ship's chief xenobiologist, stood beside Lisa. His enthusiasm was barely contained. "Just think, Captain. After all this time wondering if we're alone in the universe, we might finally get an answer." Sergeant Eric Donovan was less optimistic. As head of security, caution was his job. "Let's hope whatever answers is friendly," he muttered, checking the status of the ship's defensive systems. The response came faster than anyone expected. Just 3 hours after sending their message, the sensors detected movement. A ship materialized from what appeared to be a fold in space itself. It was enormous, at least 20 times the size of the Defiant. "My God," whispered Dr. Wright. "They have some form of faster-than-light travel." Lisa straightened her uniform. "Everyone remain calm. This is what we trained for." The alien vessel was unlike anything human engineers had ever conceived. It resembled a massive armored predator, all sharp angles and protruding spines. Its hull gleamed with a dark metallic sheen that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. "We're receiving a transmission," announced Officer Miller, his voice trembling slightly. It seems to be compatible with our communication systems." "Put it through," ordered Lisa. The view screen flickered and the crew of the Defiant got their first look at an alien species. The creature that appeared was reptilian, with scales the color of burnished copper. Its head was elongated with ridges of bone protecting its skull, and vertical pupils set in amber eyes regarded them with what seemed like amusement. "I am Supreme Commander Zex Thule of the Krell Dominion," the creature announced in perfect English, its voice a deep rumble that seemed to vibrate the air. "Your primitive signal has been intercepted and analyzed. We find your species interesting." Lisa stepped forward. "I am Captain Lisa Harmon of Earth's United Exploration Service. We come in peace seeking friendship and knowledge exchange with other intelligent life." The Krell commander made a sound that might have been laughter. "Peace? Knowledge exchange? Such soft concepts from such soft creatures. Your species is physically weak, technologically primitive, and woefully unprepared for the realities of galactic civilization," Dr. Wright whispered to Lisa. "They must have incredibly advanced translation technology to understand our languages so quickly." Zexthul continued. "The Krell Dominion rules 37 star systems. We are the apex predators of this sector. Lesser species serve us or perish." Lisa maintained her composure. "We respect your accomplishments, Supreme Commander, but humanity seeks peaceful coexistence, not servitude. Perhaps we could arrange a diplomatic meeting to discuss." "There is nothing to discuss," interrupted Zexithul. "Your species will submit, or it will be deemed unworthy of existence." To demonstrate our power, the alien commander made a gesture, and one of his subordinates pressed something on a control panel. Officer Miller's console suddenly lit up with emergency signals. "Captain, we're receiving a distress call from Europa Station." Europa, one of Jupiter's moons, housed humanity's largest off-Earth research facility. Over 400 scientists and support staff lived there, studying the subsurface ocean and developing new technologies for deep space exploration. "Putting it on screen," said Miller. The peaceful image of the Krell commander was replaced by chaos. Dr. Karen Lee, Europa Station's director, appeared, her face streaked with blood. "This is Europa Station. We're under attack. Some kind of energy weapon is cutting through our..." The transmission cut to static, then showed the station exploding in a brilliant flash of light. Stunned silence fell over the Defiant's bridge. Lisa's hands gripped the command console so tightly her knuckles turned white. Zexthul reappeared on screen, looking satisfied. "A simple demonstration. The weapon that destroyed your outpost was merely a scout ship. Imagine what our warships could do to your homeworld. You murdered 400 innocent people, Lisa said, her voice tight with controlled rage. They were scientists, researchers. They posed no threat to you. Threat? The Krell commander seemed genuinely amused. No species has posed a true threat to the Krell in over 1,000 years. Consider this mercy. A small sacrifice to show you the futility of resistance. Sergeant Donovan had moved to Lisa's side. Captain, he whispered urgently, we should power up weapons. They've already shown hostile intent. Lisa shook her head slightly. The Defiance weapons were designed for self-defense against asteroids and space debris, not combat with an advanced alien warship. Fighting now would be suicide. What do you want from us? Lisa asked the Krell commander. Simple terms of surrender, replied Zex Thule. Earth will become a resource world for the Dominion. Your people will provide labor and materials as needed. In exchange, you will be permitted to continue existing under our protection. Dr. Wright stepped forward. And if we refuse? The Krell commander's mouth stretched into what might have been a smile, revealing rows of serrated teeth. Then your species joins the long list of those deemed unworthy of continuation. We would harvest your world's resources without the inconvenience of preserving its native life. Lisa's mind raced through options. The Defiant carried Earth's first quantum entanglement communication device. They could send a warning instantly, regardless of distance. But what could Earth do against such technology? Your species has 30 of your Earth days to prepare for our arrival and formally submit, continued Zexathul. Any resistance will be met with immediate extinction. This is generous by our standards. Most species are not given time to accept their inevitable place in the natural order. Lisa forced herself to appear calm. We will deliver your message to Earth's leadership. See that you do, Captain Harmon. The Krell have encountered many species in our expansion. Some fight, some beg, but all eventually serve or perish. Your soft-skinned kind will be no different. The Krell commander leaned closer to the screen. We have studied your transmission thoroughly. Your history, your biology. You are persistence predators on a heavy gravity world. Interesting, but ultimately irrelevant. Physical endurance means nothing against our technology. With that, the transmission ended. The massive Krell ship seemed to fold in on itself, disappearing into what their sensors identified as some kind of artificial wormhole. Send the quantum message to Earth Command, Lisa ordered. Priority Alpha. Include everything that happened here and all sensor data on the Krell ship. As Officer Miller carried out her orders, Lisa turned to Dr. Wright and Sergeant Donovan. They think we're weak because we're not covered in scales and armor. They think we'll surrender because they can destroy one outpost. They don't understand humans very well, do they? Said Donovan, his face grim. No, agreed Lisa. They don't. And that might be the only advantage we have. She looked back at the stars where the Krell ship had been, 30 days to prepare for an invasion by a technologically superior enemy. It's not enough time, whispered Dr. Wright. Lisa's expression hardened. It will have to be. The Krell think they're apex predators, but they've never met humanity before. They've never seen what humans do when backed into a corner. She turned to her crew, who looked to her for strength and hope. Set course for Earth, maximum speed. It's time to prepare for war. The news of the Krell ultimatum spread through Earth like wildfire. Panic gripped many, but in the secure underground chambers beneath Geneva, humanity's leaders gathered to plan their response. Admiral Patricia Wells stood at the head of the circular table, her weathered face illuminated by the holographic display showing the Krell ship specifications, captured by the Defiance sensors. 400 dead on Europa, she said, her voice steady despite her anger. And they call it a demonstration of mercy. The World Security Council members sat in grim silence. President Raymond Carter finally spoke. Admiral Wells, you've reviewed the Defiance data. What are we facing? Patricia gestured to the hologram. The Krell possess technology far beyond our current capabilities. Their energy weapons, FTL travel, and shield systems are at least several centuries ahead of ours. In a conventional confrontation, we would not stand a chance. Then surrender is our only option? Asked the Chinese representative, her face tight with concern. Admiral Wells's eyes flashed. Absolutely not. We activate Protocol Thermopylae. A murmur went through the room. Protocol Thermopylae was a contingency plan created 50 years ago, after the discovery of possible alien radio signals. Named after the ancient battle where a small force held off a vastly superior enemy, it detailed humanity's response to hostile alien contact. The Krell have given us 30 days, continued Patricia. They expect us to spend that time in fear, debating whether to submit. Instead, we'll use every second preparing for war. Dr. Kevin Rogers, lead weapons engineer at Chimera Advanced Technologies, stepped forward. His normally rumpled appearance was even more disheveled than usual, evidence of the sleepless nights since the Krell message arrived. We've analyzed fragments recovered from a Krell scout ship that crashed near Europa before the main attack, he explained, bringing up new images on the display. Their technology has vulnerabilities we can exploit. He pointed to what appeared to be a complex energy matrix. Their shields are designed to disperse energy weapons, the kind they expect advanced civilizations to use. But we still rely heavily on kinetic weapons. Sometimes the old ways are the best ways. President Carter leaned forward. Can we build enough weapons in 30 days to make a difference? Patricia nodded to her aide, who activated another display showing a map of the solar system. Red dots appeared throughout, on Mars within the asteroid belt, beneath the lunar surface and even in Neptune's atmosphere. Black site manufacturing facilities, Patricia explained. Built over the last 5 decades as part of Protocol Thermopylae. We've been preparing for this possibility since we first looked to the stars and wondered if we were alone. Dr. Rogers added, we've had working prototypes of advanced weapon systems for years. With the Krell specifications from the Defiant, we can finalize designs and begin mass production immediately. Across the room, Major Olivia Nash watched silently. As commander of Earth Special Forces Reconnaissance Division, her job wasn't about fighting battles. It was about gathering intelligence that won wars before they began. She stepped forward. While we prepare our defenses, my teams are ready for offensive operations, she said. We need to know more about our enemy. The Defiant is our only ship capable of interstellar travel, objected the European Union representative. And even with its experimental drive, it would take years to reach Krell territory. Major Nash smiled slightly. Not necessarily. The Defiant observed how the Krell ship created artificial wormholes for travel. Dr. Rogers' team has been studying the data. We can't replicate their technology in 30 days, Dr. Rogers clarified. But we can detect when and where these wormholes will open. Major Nash's proposal is to have stealth craft ready to slip through in their wake. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. It was a desperate plan with minimal chances of success. What would be the objective? Asked President Carter. Intelligence gathering and deployment of quantum entanglement communication nodes, replied Major Nash. We need eyes behind enemy lines. Within hours, the plan was approved. Across Earth and throughout the solar system, humanity mobilized with a unity of purpose never before seen in its fractured history. Old rivalries were set aside as the species faced its first external threat. In the Chimera Advanced Technologies facility buried deep beneath the Rocky Mountains, Dr. Rogers worked tirelessly with his team. The remains of the Krell scout ship yielded more secrets daily. Their shield harmonics fluctuate in a predictable pattern, he explained to Admiral Wells during one of her inspection visits. A properly timed kinetic strike could penetrate their defenses. He led her to a massive hangar where technicians swarmed over what looked like a conventional railgun, but scaled up to unprecedented size. We're calling it the Excalibur system, Kevin said with pride. It accelerates a depleted uranium slug to a significant fraction of light speed. The kinetic energy on impact is equivalent to a small nuclear detonation, but without the radiation. Patricia nodded approvingly. How many can we deploy in 30 days? At least 50 across the solar system. We're converting asteroid mining platforms. They already have most of the necessary infrastructure. Meanwhile, Major Nash prepared her teams for what many considered a suicide mission. In a secure facility beneath the lunar surface, 12 specially selected operators trained with newly designed stealth craft, barely larger than escape pods. Our job is insertion, not confrontation, she briefed them. We'll ride through the Krell wormholes, deploy the QE nodes, and gather as much intelligence as possible without detection. One of her operatives, Lieutenant Charlie Baker, asked the question on everyone's mind. And if we are detected? Olivia's expression remained neutral. Then you activate the self-destruct. We cannot allow the Krell to capture our technology or personnel. The days passed quickly as humanity prepared. Public announcements portrayed diplomatic efforts to negotiate with the Krell, giving the impression that Earth was considering the terms of surrender. Meanwhile, civilians were quietly relocated to hardened shelters. Critical infrastructure was moved underground, and the largest military buildup in human history continued in secret. On the 25th day, Major Nash's teams deployed. 12 stealth craft, each with a crew of 2, waited in the shadow of Neptune. When the sensors detected the quantum fluctuations that preceded a Krell wormhole, they moved into position. In the command center, Admiral Wells watched the operation with Dr. Rogers and President Carter. The tension was palpable as the Krell ship emerged from its wormhole, conducted what appeared to be a routine patrol, and prepared to depart. "Wormhole forming," announced the sensor operator. "Stealth craft are in position." As the massive Krell vessel disappeared into the collapsing wormhole, the tiny human craft followed, slipping through the closing dimensional tear-like shadows. For 3 excruciating minutes there was no communication. Then, one by one, signals appeared on the quantum entanglement network. All 12 craft had made it through. "First phase successful," said Olivia, her professional demeanor not quite hiding her relief. "They're deploying now in different sectors of Krell space." The intelligence began flowing immediately. The stealth craft, designed to mimic space debris, drifted through Krell territory, their advanced sensors recording everything. Dr. Rogers analyzed the data with growing excitement. "This is incredible. The Krell dominate numerous species through fear and superior technology, but their actual military resources are spread remarkably thin. They've never needed a large fighting force because no one has ever seriously resisted them." Admiral Wells studied the Krell fleet deployments. "They're preparing to move on Earth, but they're only sending a fraction of their total forces. They don't consider us a serious threat." President Carter looked at the intelligence from the subjugated alien worlds. "These other species, they've all surrendered after a single demonstration of Krell power?" "Yes," confirmed Major Nash. "The Krell have no concept of total war. Their conquest model is based on overwhelming force followed by immediate capitulation. They've never faced an enemy that continued fighting after initial defeats." "Then we have our strategy," said Admiral Wells, her eyes gleaming with determination. "We don't need to match their full military might. We just need to survive their first strike and show them what humans do when backed into a corner." As the 30th day approached, humanity waited. On the surface, Earth appeared peaceful, with public broadcasts showing continued debates about accepting the Krell terms. Beneath that calm exterior, the solar system had become an armed camp, with weapons aimed outward at the stars. In his private office, President Carter made a final review of humanity's preparations with Admiral Wells. "Will it be enough?" he asked quietly. Patricia's face was solemn. "I won't lie to you, Mr. President. We're facing technology centuries beyond our own. But the Krell have never encountered humans before. They don't understand what we are, what our history has made us, and what is that, Admiral? Survivors, sir. When the Krell arrive expecting surrender, they'll learn that humans don't submit easily. They may have the technology of predators, but we have the spirit of ones who never learned to give up." The 30th day arrived with a tense silence across Earth. Commander Jack Holloway stood on the bridge of the stealth carrier UES Normandy, hidden in the shadow of the moon. His ship was the first of its kind, designed specifically to counter the Krell threat. The Normandy's hull was coated with experimental materials that absorbed sensor waves rather than reflecting them, making it nearly invisible to conventional detection systems. "Status report," Jack ordered, his voice calm despite the weight of responsibility on his shoulders. At 42, he was considered young for such a command, but his unconventional tactical thinking had made him the natural choice for this mission. "All systems nominal, sir," replied his executive officer. "Stealth systems functioning at optimal levels. The Krell won't see us until it's too late, ready for deployment. Lieutenant Bishop's squadron is prepared for immediate launch." In the carrier's launch bay, Lieutenant Susan Bishop completed her final checks on her Nova-class fighter. The sleek black craft was unlike traditional space fighters. Its design prioritized speed and stealth over armor, with an advanced targeting system linked directly to her neural implants. "All green across the board," she confirmed to her squadron. "Remember, people, these aren't training simulations anymore. Stay tight, follow the attack pattern, and hit your targets clean." Throughout the solar system, similar preparations were underway. In a repurposed mining facility on Mars, civilian engineer Greg Martinez oversaw last-minute modifications to a fleet of converted mining vessels. When the war effort had begun, Greg had been designing excavation equipment. Now he was retrofitting those same machines with weapons. The beauty of mining lasers, he explained to a group of former miners now serving as crew, is that they're already designed to cut through dense materials. We've just increased the power output and improved the focusing mechanisms. They won't expect civilian vessels to be armed. One of the miners looked skeptical. You really think we stand a chance against warships? Greg patted the hull of the nearest vessel. No, not in a fair fight. But this won't be a fair fight. We're not trying to match them ship for ship. We're aiming to surprise them, hit hard and disperse before they can respond. The alert came without warning. Massive quantum disturbances were detected near Jupiter's orbit. The Krell fleet had arrived exactly when promised. Earth's public channels remained silent, maintaining the illusion that humanity was still debating surrender terms. In the Geneva Command Center, Admiral Wells watched the sensor feeds. How many ships? We count 27 capital ships and approximately 200 support vessels, reported the sensor officer. Their formation suggests a standard intimidation deployment, not a combat formation. The Admiral nodded grimly. They're still expecting us to surrender without a fight. Maintain communications blackout. Let them come closer. The Krell fleet moved slowly toward Earth, their formation spreading out to make their numbers seem even more impressive. Minutes passed in tense silence as they approached the orbit of Mars. No response from the humans, growled Supreme Commander Zex Thule from the bridge of his flagship. Their silence is disrespectful. Perhaps they need further motivation. He gestured to his weapons officer. Target one of their Mars facilities. Nothing critical, just enough to remind them of our power. Sir, interrupted his sensor officer, I'm detecting unusual energy readings from Earth's moon. Zex Thule dismissed the concern with a wave of his clawed hand. Irrelevant. Their primitive technology poses no threat. Proceed with the demonstration strike. A single Krell destroyer broke formation, moving toward a small research outpost on Mars's surface. Its weapon systems powered up, glowing with deadly energy. In the Geneva Command Center, Admiral Wells watched the destroyer's movement. They're targeting the Olympus Mons research station. She pressed a button on her command console. All units, Operation Leonidas is now active. I repeat, Operation Leonidas is active. The space around the Krell fleet suddenly erupted in silent explosions. Thousands of stealth mines, deployed weeks earlier along the projected approach vectors, detonated simultaneously. The mines weren't designed to destroy the massive Krell ships but to disrupt their formations and overload their shields with multiple simultaneous impacts. What is happening? Roared Zex Thule as his ship rocked from nearby detonations. Sensors, report! Multiple explosions throughout the fleet, replied his sensor officer, confusion evident in his voice. Some kind of primitive explosive devices. Minimal damage to our capital ships, but our screens are fluctuating from the energy dispersal requirements. Before the Krell commander could issue new orders, a second wave of attacks began. From behind the moon, the UES Normandy decloaked and launched its complement of Nova fighters. Lieutenant Bishop led the first squadron, her neural implants feeding her tactical data directly. Target their sensor arrays and weapons emplacements, she ordered her pilots. Remember your training. Hit and move, don't stay in their firing solutions. The Nova fighters were incredibly fast, darting between the confused Krell vessels. Unlike the energy weapons the Krell expected, the human fighters fired solid tungsten rounds from mass accelerator cannons. These simple projectiles, accelerated to a significant fraction of light speed, carried devastating kinetic energy that the Krell shields had never been designed to stop. Impossible, shouted a Krell officer as he watched a human fighter's projectile punch through a destroyer's shields and tear through its sensor array. Their weapons are primitive kinetic projectiles. How are they penetrating our defenses? From the shadows of Mars came the next surprise. Greg Martinez and his fleet of converted mining vessels emerged, their enhanced mining lasers firing in coordinated volleys. While a single mining laser posed little threat, dozens firing simultaneously at the same weak point created a cumulative effect that overwhelmed the Krell shields. The humans are using mining ships as weapons, reported Zex Thule's tactical officer in disbelief. This is not how civilized species wage war. Zex Thule's rage was palpable. Destroy them. Bring all weapons to bear. But the human forces refused to mass for an easy target. Instead, they attacked in small, coordinated groups from multiple vectors, striking and then retreating before the Krell could effectively respond. The massive Krell weapons, designed to destroy capital ships or bombard planets, struggled to track the nimble human craft. From his position on the Normandy's bridge, Commander Holloway directed the battle with calculated precision. Group 3, target the flagship's propulsion systems. Group 5, continue harassment of their communication arrays. The Krell commander, accustomed to enemies who either fought in conventional formations or surrendered immediately, found himself unable to counter the human tactics. His ships, designed for overwhelming force against predictable opponents, were being picked apart by an enemy that refused to behave according to the established rules of engagement. When a particularly bold Nova fighter managed to deliver a precision strike directly to the bridge shields of a Krell cruiser, causing a cascade failure that disabled the vessel, Zexthul could contain his fury no longer. Enough of this. Prepare the gravity lance. We will obliterate their moon as punishment for this resistance. The Krell flagship began charging its most powerful weapon, designed to create localized gravitational singularities that could tear apart small celestial bodies. As the weapon powered up, the human forces seemed to pull back as if recognizing the threat. In the Geneva Command Center, Admiral Wells noted the energy buildup. They're preparing to use their primary weapon. Exactly as we predicted. She opened a secure channel. Dr. Rogers, they've taken the bait. Excalibur batteries are cleared to fire. Hidden throughout the solar system, 50 massive railgun installations powered up. These Excalibur batteries, built into asteroids and small moons, had remained dormant until this moment. Each contained a single depleted uranium projectile massing several tons, held in an electromagnetic acceleration chamber. Target locked, confirmed Dr. Rogers from his control center on Europa's sister moon Ganymede. Firing solution computed. Excalibur batteries firing in 3, 2, 1. Across the solar system, the railguns fired simultaneously. The massive projectiles crossed the void at a significant fraction of light speed, their trajectories calculated to converge on the Krell flagship, at precisely the moment its defenses were focused on charging its gravity lance. Zex. Thule had only a moment to register the approaching danger before the impact struck. The kinetic energy released was catastrophic, overwhelming the flagship's shields and tearing through its armored hull. Secondary explosions rippled through the massive vessel as power systems failed and weapon cores destabilized. "Damage report," he demanded, picking himself up from the deck where the impact had thrown him. "Catastrophic hull breaches on multiple decks," reported his executive officer, green blood flowing from a wound on his scaled head. "Weapon systems offline, propulsion failing. We are receiving distress calls from 12 other capital ships." The Krell commander stared in disbelief at the tactical display. In less than 30 minutes of combat, his invasion fleet had lost effective fighting capacity. Nearly a third of his vessels were severely damaged or disabled, and the rest were struggling to maintain formation under the continuing human attacks. General Warren Hayes stood on the observation deck of the Lunar Command Center, watching Earth rotate slowly against the backdrop of stars. 3 months had passed since the first battle with the Krell, and humanity had used every second to prepare for their return. At 58, Warren had spent his entire career preparing for wars that never came. Now he faced one that would determine the survival of his species. "Beautiful, isn't it?" asked Diana Porter as she joined him at the viewport. As Earth's lead diplomat and psychological warfare specialist, she had been working closely with General Hayes to develop strategies against the Krell. Warren nodded. "Worth fighting for." Diana handed him a data tablet, the latest intelligence from Major Nash's operatives in Krell space. "It's not good news." The general scanned the report, his expression growing grimmer with each line. "They're coming back with everything they have, 3 times the force of their first attack. The Krell have never faced resistance like ours," Diana said. "Their entire society is built on the assumption of their natural superiority. Our defense has threatened not just their military plans but their fundamental identity as apex predators." Warren handed the tablet back. "Then they're about to receive another shock to their system." "Are the psychological warfare packages ready?" Diana smiled. "Ready and waiting. Our analysis of Krell communication patterns has given us a good understanding of how to exploit their hierarchical psychology." They've never experienced significant casualties in conquest. We're going to show them what that feels like. On the far side of the moon, Lieutenant Colonel Sam Jackson led a training exercise for his Special Forces teams. The soldiers moved through a mock-up of a Krell vessel, their movements precise and coordinated. Unlike conventional military units, Jackson's team specialized in asymmetric warfare. Remember, he instructed as they regrouped, the Krell expect direct confrontation. That's where they excel. Our job is to hit them where they're not looking, disrupt their supply lines, and disappear before they can respond. One of his soldiers, Sergeant Linda Reyes, checked her specialized equipment. The new stealth suits work better than expected in the simulations. The Krell won't know we're there until it's too late. Sam nodded approvingly. That's the idea. We don't need to destroy their warships. We just need to make sure those ships can't fight effectively. Throughout the solar system, similar preparations were underway. Humanity had accepted that they couldn't match the Krell in direct ship-to-ship combat, so they had developed alternatives. Asteroid bases were converted into massive railgun platforms. Gas mining stations in Jupiter's atmosphere were repurposed to produce specialized weapons. Earth itself was transformed, with major population centers moved underground and critical infrastructure hardened against orbital bombardment. The alert came on a quiet Tuesday morning. Quantum disturbances were detected near Saturn, larger than anything previously recorded. The Krell had returned, and they had brought their full might. In the Geneva Command Center, General Hayes addressed the combined military leadership. This isn't like the first encounter. They won't underestimate us again. They're coming with sufficient force to overwhelm any conventional defense. Admiral Wells, now serving as Hayes' second-in-command, stepped forward. Then we won't fight conventionally. Operation Hydra is now in effect. Throughout the solar system, human forces dispersed according to carefully prepared plans. Rather than massing for defense, they scattered into thousands of small mobile units, each capable of independent action, but coordinated through quantum entanglement communications. The Krell fleet emerged from their wormholes in perfect formation, a vast armada of over 300 capital ships and more than 1,000 support vessels. At its center was a new flagship, even larger than the one damaged in the previous battle. From its bridge, Supreme Commander Zex Thul surveyed the tactical display with cold fury. No mistakes this time, he told his officers. The humans have proven themselves worthy of our full attention. We will crush their resistance and make an example of their world. His new executive officer, Sub-Commander Vexkar, indicated the sensor readings. They appear to be dispersing their forces, Supreme Commander. An unusual tactic. They seek to replicate their earlier success with hit-and-run attacks. Zex Thul dismissed. It will not save them. Begin the advance. All ships are authorized to fire at will on any human vessel or installation. The Krell Armada moved inexorably toward Earth, weapons charged and shields at maximum power. But the expected human attacks did not materialize. Instead, as the Krell fleet passed the orbit of Jupiter, they encountered only empty space. Where are they hiding? Zex Thul demanded. Sensors, full sweep of the system. Scattered readings, Commander, but no significant concentrations of forces, reported his sensor officer. They appear to be waiting. The Krell commander's instincts warned him of a trap, but he could see no alternative but to press forward. As his fleet approached the orbit of Mars, the first phase of humanity's defense was revealed. Massive energy signatures detected throughout the asteroid belt, called out the sensor officer. They're powering up weapons. Hidden within the asteroid belt, 50 massive Excalibur railgun installations fired simultaneously, launching a barrage of kinetic projectiles at the Krell fleet. Unlike the previous battle, the Krell were prepared for this attack, their shields configured to deflect kinetic impacts. Primitive, sneered Zex Thul as his ships weathered the barrage with minimal damage. Is this the best they can offer? But the railgun attack was merely a distraction. As the Krell focused their defenses forward, Lieutenant Colonel Jackson's Special Forces team struck from behind. Dozens of stealth craft, having hidden in the shadow of Jupiter's moons, slipped undetected into the rear of the Krell formation. Teams Alpha through Echo, target their supply vessels, Jackson ordered from his command craft. Teams Foxtrot through Lima, go for their communications relays. The Special Forces teams attached themselves to Krell ships like remoras on sharks, placing specialized explosive charges at critical junctions before moving to new targets. They didn't aim to destroy the massive warships, but to disable their ability to coordinate and sustain combat operations. The first explosions took the Krell completely by surprise. Supply ships carrying ammunition and fuel erupted in brilliant flashes. Communications relays failed, causing confusion throughout the fleet's command structure. "We are under attack from the rear," reported Vexkar. "How did they penetrate our formation undetected?" Before Zexthul could respond, a new development demanded his attention. The quantum communication network that linked his fleet suddenly flooded with images and sounds that no Krell commander had ever experienced. Recordings of Krell soldiers dying, Krell ships being destroyed, and Krell civilians in panic. "What is this?" he snarled, trying to shut down the transmissions. In her command center, Diana Porter monitored the psychological warfare operation with satisfaction. "They're responding exactly as predicted," she told General Hayes. "Their hierarchical society has never had to process widespread casualties or defeat. The cognitive dissonance is overwhelming their command structure." As the Krell fleet struggled to maintain cohesion under the combined assaults, General Hayes gave the order for the next phase. "All combat groups, execute Thermopylae Protocol." From hidden bases on Mars, the moons of Jupiter, and even Earth's oceans, human combat vessels launched in coordinated waves. Unlike conventional military formations, they moved in what appeared to be chaotic patterns, making it impossible for the Krell targeting systems to predict their movements. The UES Normandy led one such group, Commander Holloway directing his ships with the precision that had made him legendary in the first battle. "Stay unpredictable," he reminded his captains. "Don't establish patterns they can target." For 6 hours, the battle raged across the solar system. The Krell, with their superior technology and overwhelming numbers, expected a quick victory despite the human tactics. But every time they adjusted to one form of attack, the humans changed their approach. When the Krell adapted their shields to counter kinetic weapons, the humans switched to electromagnetic pulse devices that disrupted their systems without needing to penetrate their hulls. When the Krell moved to protect their supply ships, the humans targeted their sensor arrays. There was no respite, no opportunity to regroup. Most disturbing to the Krell was the human willingness to sacrifice. When a Krell cruiser cornered a human destroyer, the captain deliberately collided with the larger vessel, detonating his reactor core and destroying both ships. Such behavior was incomprehensible to the Krell, who valued preservation of their forces above all else. "They fight like no species we have ever encountered," Vexkar told his commander as their flagship rocked from another nearby explosion. "We have lost nearly 70 ships and they show no signs of surrendering." Zexthul stared at the tactical display in disbelief. Despite inflicting heavy losses on the humans, his own fleet was being worn down by their relentless attacks. The psychological warfare continued unabated, with images of Krell defeat now supplemented by actual casualties from the current battle. "We must press on to Earth," he insisted. "Once we destroy their homeworld, their resistance will collapse." 3 years passed since the Krell first threatened Earth. What had begun as a simple conquest became the longest and costliest conflict in Krell history. President Laura Bennett stood at the window of her underground office beneath the ruins of Washington, D.C., watching as workers cleared debris from yet another orbital bombardment. At 49, she had aged visibly under the strain of leading humanity through its darkest hours. "Madam President," announced her aide, "Dr. Cooper has arrived with his team." Laura turned and nodded. "Send them in." Dr. Ryan Cooper entered, followed by 2 colleagues. Once the head of theoretical physics at MIT, he now led the most secretive weapons development program in human history. Despite the weight of his responsibilities, his eyes still held the excitement of scientific discovery. "We've done it," he said without preamble. "The sundering device works." Laura's expression remained carefully neutral. "You're certain?" Ryan nodded. "The prototype successfully disrupted quantum fields in a controlled test environment. We can prevent wormhole formation within a radius of approximately 2 light hours. Any Krell ship caught within that radius would be effectively stranded, unable to escape via FTL travel. And the side effects? Minimal. Conventional propulsion and communications are unaffected. Only the specific quantum fields used for FTL travel are disrupted." The president considered this information carefully. "How many can we deploy and how quickly?" We have materials for 12 devices ready now. Production of more would take time, but with the fabrication facilities on Europa back online, we could produce perhaps 3 per month. Laura nodded. Proceed with full production. Work with General Hayes on deployment strategies. She paused. This could be the turning point we've been waiting for. As Dr. Cooper and his team departed, Laura received another visitor. Commander Zara Mitchell entered, still wearing her flight suit. At 36, Zara had risen quickly through the ranks to become captain of the UES Retribution, Earth's first true battleship. The shipyards at Titan report the Retribution will be ready for its first combat deployment within the week, Zara reported. 5 more battleships are in the final stages of construction. Good, said Laura. We'll need them for what comes next. The Retribution represented a major shift in human strategy. For 3 years, Earth forces had fought defensively, using guerrilla tactics against the technologically superior Krell. The new battleship signaled a change to a more aggressive posture. You understand the mission parameters? Laura asked. Zara nodded firmly. Completely, Madam President. Once the sundering devices are in place, the Retribution Battle Group will lead the strike directly at the Krell staging area in the Kuiper Belt. If successful, we'll trap their remaining forces in our solar system, cutting them off from reinforcement. In the 3 years of war, humanity had suffered terribly. Major cities lay in ruins from orbital bombardments. Millions had died, but the Krell had paid an unprecedented price as well. Their fleets, accustomed to quick victories against inferior opponents, found themselves caught in a war of attrition they were not equipped to fight. More significantly, news of the Krell's failures had spread throughout their empire. Species long subjugated began to question the invincibility of their masters. Small rebellions flared on distant worlds, forcing the Krell to divert forces from the Earth campaign to maintain control of their territories. Supreme Commander Zex Thul, once the pride of the Krell Dominion, had been recalled in disgrace after the second failed invasion. His replacement, Grand Marshal Kazvor, now commanded the Krell forces from a heavily fortified base in the Kuiper Belt. There, beyond the reach of most human attacks, he gathered ships and supplies for what he promised would be the final, decisive strike against Earth. What Kazvor didn't know was that human intelligence, led by Major Nash's operatives, had pinpointed the location of his base. For months, Earth forces had been content to let the Krell believe they were safely beyond reach, all while preparing for a daring counterstrike. 1 week later, Commander Mitchell stood on the bridge of the Retribution as it departed the shipyards of Titan. The massive vessel represented the pinnacle of human military technology, incorporating both human innovation and reverse-engineered Krell systems. Alongside it flew 5 smaller but equally formidable battleships, each commanding a battle group of support vessels. All ships report ready, Commander, announced her executive officer. Zara nodded. Signal the fleet. Operation Nemesis is now active. Throughout the solar system, the last 3 years of bitter fighting had taught humanity harsh lessons about warfare against a technologically superior enemy. Those lessons had been learned in blood, but they had also forged Earth's military into a force unlike any the galaxy had seen before. Dr. Cooper's team worked quickly to deploy the sundering devices in a carefully planned pattern around the Krell base. Carried by stealth craft and placed by special forces teams, the devices remained dormant, waiting for the signal to activate simultaneously. Meanwhile, Lieutenant Colonel Jackson led a diversionary attack against Krell patrols near Neptune, drawing attention away from the Kuiper Belt. The Krell, having learned to fear human special forces, responded with overwhelming force to this apparent threat. Grand Marshal, reported a Krell sensor officer, human attack forces detected near Neptune. Our patrols are engaging. Kazvor studied the tactical display with suspicion. After 3 years fighting humans, he had developed a healthy respect for their deceptive tactics. Maintain alert status at the base. This may be a diversion. His caution was warranted but insufficient. As the Krell focused on the Neptune engagement, Commander Mitchell's battle group approached from below the ecliptic plane, using the sun's radiation to mask their energy signatures. We are in position, Zara informed her fleet commanders. All ships prepare for combat jump. Dr. Cooper, you may activate the sundering devices. Across the Kuiper Belt, the 12 devices activated simultaneously, generating a quantum disruption field that encompassed the entire region. On the Krell base, the effect was immediate and dramatic. "Grand Marshal," cried the Krell communications officer. "Wormhole generators are failing. We cannot establish FTL fields." Before Kasvor could respond, space around the base seemed to ripple as the Retribution and its battle group emerged from their faster-than-light jump. The last such jump possible before the sundering field took full effect. "All ships, weapons free," ordered Commander Mitchell. "Target their defense platforms first, then their communication arrays." The human battleships opened fire with weapons that would have been unimaginable 3 years earlier. Railguns firing projectiles at appreciable percentages of light speed. Focused electromagnetic pulses that disrupted Krell shield harmonics. Missiles containing specialized nanites that targeted specific Krell systems. On his base, Grand Marshal Kasvor watched in disbelief as his outer defenses collapsed under the human assault. "Launch all fighters! Power up the orbital cannons! Contact High Command for reinforcements." "Sir, we cannot establish wormhole communications," his officer replied, panic evident in his voice. "Something is blocking all FTL fields. We are cut off." For the first time in the long history of the Krell Dominion, a Krell military leader faced the prospect of total defeat. Without the ability to call for reinforcements or retreat via wormhole, Kasvor's forces were trapped and outnumbered. The battle raged for 6 hours. Though the Krell fought with the ferocity of cornered predators, they could not overcome the combined might of the human fleet. One by one, their defense platforms fell silent. Their fighters, unable to return to their carriers, ran out of fuel and weapons. Finally, with his base heavily damaged and most of his ships destroyed or disabled, Grand Marshal Kasvor faced the inevitable. Open a communication channel to the human commander. On the bridge of the Retribution, Commander Mitchell received the Krell transmission with grim satisfaction. "Put it on screen." The face of Grand Marshal Kasvor appeared, his scales darkened with the Krell equivalent of exhaustion and defeat. "Human commander, I propose a cessation of hostilities to discuss terms." Zara's expression remained neutral. "I am not authorized to negotiate. You will power down all remaining weapons and prepare to receive President Bennett's representatives." 24 hours later, in a conference room aboard the Retribution, President Laura Bennett faced Grand Marshal Kasvor across a simple metal table. It was the first direct meeting between human and Krell leadership. "Your species has earned the right to speak as equals," conceded Kasvor, his once arrogant demeanor subdued. "What are your terms?" Laura's gaze was steady. "The complete withdrawal of all Krell forces from our solar system. Recognition of Earth and its colonies as sovereign territory, off limits to Krell expansion, and reparations for the damage inflicted on our world. And in return, we will not extend this conflict to your homeworld or existing territories. We have no interest in conquest, only in securing our future." The Krell Marshal studied her with new understanding. "You could destroy us completely. Our homeworld is defenseless with our fleets trapped here. Why show restraint now?" Laura's answer surprised him. "Because that's not who we are. Humanity has always had the capacity for terrible destruction,